sole Porsche, the sole Aston Martin, you've got 2 of the Jaguars, 10 Lamborghinis, Bentley on the grid, plenty of Audis, plenty of Ferraris, of course, and also you've got the Mercedes AMGs, so lots to look for. And as you were looking at the entry lists, rather than starting order as it came up on the screen, some of the names in this, there's 3 gun drivers, Giancarlo Fisichella, Marco Ciocci, James Collado, sharing the Kaspersky Ferrari. Marco Ciocci will go first, he will do Q1, Fisichella I would imagine will do Q3, having been a real hero last year here. That is a potential winner, but picking a potential winner, you take the entry list and you take a pin and you put one against the other, because it is wide open, this. There are so many good car driver combinations. The BOP is going to be a big factor.
Well, the BOP will have a knock-on effect from the first round of the Sprint Series, which was at Misano 3 weekends ago, and undoubtedly the dominance that we saw from the Mercedes AMG GT3s, they will have been pegged back a little bit. Other teams might have been given a little bit more slack. But as I mentioned, in the 2 sessions, the 2 1.5-hour sessions we had on Saturday, I could not see a pattern. I couldn't see a driver-car package that I could say, that has got to be my favourite. Except, if we just saw Fisichella, Collado, that Ferrari, the Kaspersky entry is one of those Italian driver-team car partnerships that you would say it's got to be a pundit or a punter for pole position, front row of the grid at least.
Number 77, the Barwell Lamborghini there, ready to go. If you watched British GT on Monday from Alton Park, you might remember that car. It was blue. It was the one that Sam Tordoff finished second in the first race with. And what they do is unclip the panels and put different panels on. It's had a new engine because it had a problem on Monday in race 2 at Alton Park. So it's got a new engine, it's got new clothes. Sam Tordoff said, I didn't recognise my car, it's amazing. He said it's like wearing different clothes. They just unclip the panels, put new ones on, and it's transformed into a different car, but there it is, good to go. So the circuit will get busier and busier as you get into Q2, because where you've got the 2 driver entries, there are a handful of those, then they will come out for Q2 onwards. There's 63, a car that's won here in the past, the Lamborghini. This is the Christian Engelhardt, Andrea Caldarelli, Mirko Bortolotti car.
Again, look to this car, the 63 Lamborghini, with Mirko Bortolotti behind the wheel, to be a car that other people in the pit lane know if Bertolotti's in it, it's got to be in a chance of getting the front row, possibly getting pole position. But then after you said that about the Ferrari, you could say it about the Bentley. That's the number 8 Bentley of Soucek, Soule and Vincent Abril, who's been quoted in. Yes, it does have a problem. Sort of was in the out lane, the fast lane, is pulled over, so maybe that car won't be a feature in qualifying. We hope it does get running. It's only just under 13 minutes. This session goes so quickly, and people still filing out onto the track just almost 2.5 minutes into the session. And sort of rather tardy entry into the chicane, the number 5 Audi. Marcel Fassler, Will Stevens, Dries Van Thor, and who is behind the wheel of that?
Marcel Fassler, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it. Marcel, of course, an evacuee in one form or another from LMP Racing, although he has been in the WRT team off and on over the last year or more.
Number 50 is a potential pole car, not necessarily in this element of qualifying, although Passin Laforas is a very quick driver, but when you get Alessandro Pierguidi in for Q3, watch it fly. Laforas getting out of harm's way, one of the Nissans there, venerable you could call them now, the Nissan GT3Rs, but it's good to have them on the grid still. Andrea Bertolini shares this car with Nick Homerson and Louis Machiels in Pro-Am, potential class winners. I'm not sure we're going to get a Pro-Am win outright, given how tough the entry is in Pro Cup, but that will be a potential class winning car for sure.
I think this year, with the depth and strength in the Pro category, the prospect of a really strong Pro-Am car winning on merit is going to get more and more difficult.
Red flag, John, sorry to interrupt you, but we've gone red straight away.
So where has that incident occurred? We saw, there we are, the Audi, and that is it's clobbered the tyre barrier, the right rear.
That's the first chicane. And there's a big impact there, because that's the 66 Lamborghini that's ploughed into the back of it.
Has it ever?
The Venturini Mappelli Luca Filippi car. I think it was Nathaniel Berton's Audi, but you can understand why the stoppage. That was a huge whack in the back.
That's a big impact. And, I mean, whether that was just a simple driver error or whether there was a technical reason, in this early phase, you would not imagine that was something that was driver responsible. Of course, with cool tyres, coming down into the first chicane, you're doing 170-ish miles per hour. And if you haven't got your brakes and tires to temperature, you might snatch a wheel, and it only takes that to put the car out of control. But that is a big hit on the Lamborghini. We saw what looked very similar damage to the 42 McLaren yesterday for, again, a different reason. That car will be in the race today, but the Lamborghini, it's hard to tell how much damage there is, unlike the McLaren, which has got a bolt-on front subframe there. We see driver out of the car, he's okay.
Giovanni Venturini, I think, was behind the wheel of it.
I mean, a lot of it looks pretty superficial, but going over to see how the Audi driver is, so I'm just certainly walking away. Let's have a look and see if we can catch up to what happened. Was there a big lock-up? Oh, yes. Massive lock-up.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 front wheels solid locked up. Now, whether that was because of a technical problem or whether that was just where you got the fronts locked, you can have a problem, rear brakes not work or not. And that's why the front would lock up like that. That was a serious impact to the rear of that Audi.
Which I think is Nathaniel Berton, the driver of, just being checked over from that whack in the back. He was completely innocent in all of that. As we've seen, the Lamborghini arrived out of nowhere, and the first he knew was when he felt this massive bang in the rear.
I mean, sometimes your drivers will, as they turn in, just look through their peripheral vision in the mirror. Let's be on board. Here's what's going to happen. It's a bit like a snooker ball. The effect, bang, and what's going on? And there you can see with the car that's hit him, and think, what was that all about? Damage to the right rear corner of the Audi. Whether that's something that can be repaired, I'm sure it ought to be. There's sufficient time from this qualifying session ending to the start of the race later this afternoon.
But in both cases, what it will do is put them to the back of the grid, because they won't be able to do a lap time now.
Yep.
So we barely got going. We had, I think, just one car through to do a lap time, and it was, as it happens, the number 2 Audi before it got wiped out. So everybody comes back into the pit lane, and we'll try again. Because this is qualifying, the session is stopped and the clock stops. In free practice yesterday, of course, when we had red flags, the clock carried on ticking, but for qualifying, the clock stops. So they keep the 11 minutes and 40 seconds of Q1. Looking down at Jimmy Eriksson there, who moves from GP3, GP2 into GT racing this year. And we are about 3.5 minutes or so away from the session getting back underway. That's the estimate once the damaged cars are out of the way. The collision is being confirmed as to the reason of the stoppage to the teams, so they know why the session has been stopped. But a big impact. Giovanni Venturini, as we've seen, completely locked up and straight into the back of the Audi. Yeah,
I mean, luckily there's no damage to the racetrack. It's just simply clearing away the carbon fibre, and there will be a lot of it on the racetrack. And even as the escape road, which is where that track marshal is brushing it away, you can see that there's a lot of the front bodywork from the Lamborghini scattered far and wide into and around the entry into turn 1.
So the race director saying that we'll hopefully be up and running in about 2 minutes' time, but it might take a little longer. They've got the Audi off the road, haven't they?
No, they haven't. It's just on the inside of the exit of turn 2.
Sorry, I meant as in it's lifted. It's on the flatbed.
It's on the back, yes,
yeah.
it is, yes.
It's no longer.
No, it's going to be
attention.
It can now be cleared.
Yeah.
But then the vehicle's got to drop it off, and then I'm assuming it's got to get back to its post before this. Maybe not. Maybe they will let it go once the Audi's back into the pit lane.
But the Attempto racing team with an empty garage and a big job ahead to try and rebuild that car. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to do that, but we'll see. We'll see. There's the sister car, 67, sitting there ready to go, which is Max van Splunter and Miguel Molina and Davide Rigo, and Clement Mathieu's car. But we'll be out in the next few minutes with everybody else. The lone BMW, we didn't talk about that as a brand because there's just the one Valkenhorst motorsport car of Michael Jensen, Nico Menzel and Jaap van Lagen. But it's good to have the M6 on the grid. A number of teams are having to skip this weekend because there is, over at the Nordschleife, a VLN event, or more strictly speaking, the qualifying race for the Nürburgring 24 hours. So some, especially the German teams, for whom that's a very important race, are having to either send just one car here, like Valkenhorst, and one to the Nordschleife, or in the case of Rover Racing, skip this race altogether, which is a great shame.
Yes, I was disappointed that Rover Racing didn't send at least one car, because, in my opinion, if you sign up to a championship, a series, then you sign up for all the events. But obviously, considerations have got to be given as the Audi has been driven back up against the flow of traffic. Damage actually surprisingly light, mainly bodywork damage to the rear of the Audi, where the Lamborghini, which is following it, has got significant front end damage. The Audi, no doubt, can be turned around pretty quickly. The Lamborghini will be another matter.
So we will have the cars released shortly. Track is clear. The Santilok Audi was quick yesterday, especially when behind the wheel of number 26 was Christopher Hasse. It's a Pro-Am car. Mark Rothstein and Christian Kelders are experienced, but Christopher Hasse is the real star turn in that car. And the man that's going to take it out is Christian Kelders.
Have they got the number 8 Bentley, which we saw pulling off the fast lane as it was about to go on track? It's been dragged back into its box. Now push a reset button, I'm assuming. So that car should get rolling and get out onto track for the first time this morning.
Number 11 as well is the Kessel Racing, Michael Bronizeski, Andrea Rizzoli, Matteo Cresoni Ferrari. Michael Bronizeski, who kept winning Pro-Am last year in sprint, endurance, and overall. He was a race winner in the GT Sports Club as well. Number 8 Bentley good to go. That should have Vincent Abril behind the wheel of it.
Well, how could you get into the... I mean, look at the traffic. It's just
exactly
filtering out one by one by one. So those cars that are at the far end of the pit lane have sort of preempted the light going green to get down to the pit lane exit, whereas those who are based nearer to the pit lane exit can't get into the line.
There's a regulation in Australian supercars, and it's come into the British Touring Car Championship as well, which is that the pit lane empties garage by garage in order. So you don't have people trying to force their way into the line. It goes from pit out to pit in order, and perhaps it's a smoother, safer way of getting everybody out.
Well, certainly it's an eminently sensible way, but there'll always be somebody who, for whatever reason, either doesn't follow the plan or isn't able to get the car out. Nevertheless, Monza's pit lane is on the more narrow side of international circuits.
Jake Dennis, you saw there, who has moved from this year's full-time single-seater programme. He's been in F3 and GP3 into GT racing. He's still doing the odd Formula 3 race. He was at Silverstone last week. He will be here next week when FIA Formula 3 comes to Monza. But part of the WRT camp, the third driver of the car, along with him and Stuart Leonard, was meant to be Robin Frins, but Robin injured himself in the week while out training. So super sub Marcus Winkelhoch is brought into the fray. Unusual to have him in a WRT car. Normally he's at the wheel of a Phoenix Audi, but anyway, Marcus will do a good job. And Jake Dennis awaits his turn. The first driver that goes out in that car is the Brit Stuart Leonard.
Marcus was saying this morning that they've got a sort of imbalance within the car, and it's a mixture of slightly turn-in oversteer and then mid-corner and exit gross understeer.
Okay.
And, you know, what's the problem? Well, we don't know. We haven't been able to solve it. We might get it overnight, but certainly that was an issue that they were battling with on Saturday.
Now that's one of the two Emil Frey Jaguars, because this year the Swiss team has bought the second car. Jonathan Hershey at the wheel of it, Marco Seefried and Christian Kleen will be the other two drivers. So again, it's a good combination of drivers.
International in flavour.
Absolutely right, and with lots of experience. Jonathan Hershey, who we've seen for years and years and years in SRO organised GT events, but he's also tried his hand in the European Rally Championship, so versatile little peddler. And his father, Pierre Hershey, we've seen in this championship in the AM category now in the GT Sports Club in the past as well. Right, so Q1 back in business, outlap completed, but you'll probably only get, what, 3-4 flying laps in this. Now, John, a word about tyres. We've got a new Pirelli tyre for this year that the teams feel is going to work differently from the old one.
Yes, and I think everybody you ask in the pit lane gives you a slightly different view of the same sort of conundrum, but from what I have understood is that the way that the tyre in 2017 operates is it doesn't have that very quick peak of grip and then the drop-off. It's a more gradual peak. You don't quite feel it in the same way, but it sustains slightly longer as well. So you go out on a new set of tyres, and basically we've got just over 8 minutes remaining, which probably, if you're lucky, will be about 4 laps. You can continue to run the tyre and it will still effectively be giving you the level of performance that you would have expected from the 2016 tyre, which essentially was a 1-lap tyre and then began to fall off in performance bit by bit, and then it would stabilise over the longer period. So it'll be interesting to see who sets the fastest times and at what point that time set. Fastest time right now is to Marco Seefried, a 1:48.8 in the Jaguar. So that is a strong run when you consider what we saw yesterday. The best we saw in the afternoon was a 1:48.3. The best we saw Saturday morning, when everybody says the track was quicker, and in conditions not dissimilar to what we see now, a 1:47.8 by the 75 Audi, Frank Stippler and Philippe Salaquada. So 1:48.8 is the opening lap time, and expect to see that being beaten, I would imagine, by almost now cars coming across at the end of their first flying lap quite frequently and regularly.
Marco
Nissan, look at that
Seifried's
wandering around, but what's all that about? High temperatures, I suppose.
Marco Seifried's Jaguar is shown as topping the times at the moment, number 114. From number 14, Laurence Frey at the wheel. So the two Jaguars, for the moment at least, topping the times. But that all changes, because now up to second fastest goes Sam Tordoff in number 44, McLaren. McLarens were nowhere yesterday, but now looking a bit more racy. Sam, runner-up in the British Touring Car Championship last year, moving to GT racing, British and Blancpain Endurance. Two different teams, two different cars. McLaren in this, Lamborghini in British.
There's the Bentley amongst the BMWs and whatever else, the Mercedes. Guy Smith behind the wheel, he's doing the first stint. Currently that car is, I was going to say it was in 17th, it's now been demoted to 19th, but that's just simply as cars are completing their laps. Unfortunately for Guy Smith, caught in a gaggle of cars which he really wants to clear as quickly as possible.
We're getting transponder glitches on the Jaguars. So although Marco Seifried is shown as driving 114, it is, as we were saying, Jonathan Hershey. And one car slow getting out of the way there as you ride on board the Bentley, yes, coming down towards the Variante Ascari. Number 7, you're on board. And for the first part of qualifying, it is Formula Le Mans winner Guy Smith, the man behind the wheel of it.
What I like with this picture within a picture is you get the view from the seat, or from the driver's seat in the Bentley coming down into Parabolica. To me, the most evocative corner remaining here at Monza, virtually unchanged in terms of its corner. On the outside, there's a lot of tarmac runoff before you get into the gravel, and the Bentley's going into the pits with just over 5 minutes remaining. Not quite sure why he would want to do that unless there is an issue, but he's now dropped off page 1. And strange reason, I don't know why. He's 33rd in the space of the lap. Oliver Jarvis,
he's
Kane.
done the 3 laps. He's got a time.
Yeah.
Bring the car in, because
maybe.
you expect it's Q3 when it gets the time.
And that set of tyres will be the set of tyres that may be the set that that car will start the race on.
Yeah, possibly so.
Good thinking, man. Good thinking.
So he's done the work and pits. There is Sam Tordoff, who raced for BMW, Dick Bennett's WSR squad in the British Touring Car Championship last year, but I think midway through the season had rather fallen out of love with it. We've got, as he presses on and learns about the McLaren, the Nissan of Lucas Ordóñez to the top of the times.
Wow.
He's done a 1:48.658 for a car that yesterday we barely saw.
Well, I mean, they went through a whole raft of changes, and drivers not sure what the problems were. They know that this racetrack, and the Nissan in particular, has got mega grunt.
Yeah.
And if they can get some grip into that car and give it some decent corner speed, then it will be up there. Right now, currently quickest.
So looking at Sam Tordoff still pressing on. He's down to 3rd fastest now, but Sam, who's never raced here, he's got a fascinating season ahead of him, really, because he has not raced at, I think I'm right in saying, any other than Silverstone of the Blancpain venues. Even some of the British circuits will be in a different configuration from what he's used to in touring car racing. He's never raced at night, so he's looking forward to Spa and to Paul Ricard. And at one point at the end of last year, he was thinking of just walking away from motor racing, but then thought, well, I'd like to go to some different places. What can I do to go and do that? And a discussion started about GT racing, and he spent quite a lot of time in Stracker's simulator at the back end of last year before the last BTCC round. And when Stracker announced that it was looking at a GT program, and they heard that Sam was looking at Lamborghinis and Barwell, they said, well, why don't you fancy coming to drive for us? And suddenly another deal was done. So he's got a very busy calendar this year, from at one point thinking of retiring from racing altogether.
Well, it's always nice if you're a racing driver and you've still got that fundamental mentality. You're not ready to settle into what you might usually call retirement. Probably by that I mean marriage and family. So you can get on with it and enjoy it.
So they're 84 Mercedes. Now this is Jimmy Eriksson, who is another in this long line of drivers who's decided that single-seater racing isn't going to earn him a living. And the former German Formula 3 champion moving to the HTP Motorsport team with the Mercedes he shares with Maxi Buch and Franck Pereira. That is a potential winning car, no question. Remember that the 84 Mercedes of Maxi Buch was right on the back of Shane van Gisbergen last year. So Jimmy Eriksson, who was 5th in GP3 2 years ago, he was fair way down in GP2 last year. Rather struggled in that in the Arden car, but moving to Team HTP Motorsport this year, he'll be a man to watch, especially as he gets more and more familiar with a GT car. In 67 at the moment is Clement Mathieu, former team manager at Hexis Racing, ex-Formula Renault, Clio and Seat racer, and he's working his way up towards the timing line there in the very smart NEC-backed car.
Yes, the sister car of the one that was heavily damaged into turn 1 just a few moments ago. So it makes its way down. No significant changes on this lap, just over a minute and a half remaining. So top 3 have all gone back into the pit lane. They've done what they wanted to do, and then they will recycle the drivers and then continue in Q2.
One of the two orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghinis you're looking at. This is number 27, which has Fabrizio Crestani at the wheel. That was pretty good yesterday in free practice, but is down in 20th at the moment at the times. So that car pressing on. Nicolas Pola joins the driving force for this season, and the Colombian Gustavo Yackerman, who was in the World Endurance Championship a couple of years ago for G-Drive. He's the 3rd driver in that car.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, they've done a 3 or 4 lap run, secured a time, which is not going to be the critical time. It will be what happens in Q2 that really will be the determining factor.
Q2 gets busier because we've got 4 cars now that are 2 drivers, one of them being the Nick Leventis McLaren. Nick had quite a sizable off yesterday morning in free practice and knocked himself about a bit. We saw him walk away from the car, but he did go to hospital to have his knees checked over because he'd given them a real old rattle as he hit the barrier. The car was rebuilt. Nick won't drive it. Straka has elected to continue in the weekend, but with just Craig Fleming and Lewis Williamson as the 2 drivers.
Yeah, and Craig Fleming's going to be, as the bronze driver, the one that will do the double stint, because anybody other than bronze, by regulation, in a 2-car lineup can only do the single stint. So it's going to be a long afternoon. Hopefully it'll be a successful one.
Yeah, flag out.
Work done by that team.
Checker flag out, Q1 at an end. So Lucas Ordóñez is the man that tops the times, and the lap time to beat is 1 minute 48.658 at the moment, but as we've been saying, the cars get lighter and the times will come down. It used to be quite intriguing to look at the different pace of drivers over the course of qualifying, but of course you can't really get a true indication of who is the quicker because of the fuel load, and as John's made the point as well, what they do with tyres. If you're going to be in a heavy car and you just want to get through and do the regulation laps, why throw a brand new set of tyres at it? So they'll probably keep another set for the race, but it's Q3 where you do need them.
Yes, it is, and the issue for everybody in an endurance event here at Monza with 53 cars in the field is you do not want to be midfield, because if you are, the time you will waste trying to get through will be virtually a driving stint, and you will lose contact with the lead cars. And other than if we've got safety car interventions where everybody can then close back up, that would be your only hope. So coming now in Q2, but Q3, that's when you get down to the really serious stuff. And something drivers, I've noticed a number of drivers being a little bit careless entering the pit lane. That white line, which is the division between the racetrack and the pit lane, you are meant to be on the right-hand side of that. You're not meant to shave it or run over it. Something that will be kept an eye on by the race director. We've got issues on a couple of corners for exceeding track limits. The other issue, that was a major problem on Saturday, and in particular where you've got a lot of youngsters coming in, strange cars, not familiar with the buttons, a lot of speeding in the pit lane. One basic one was the speed limit button only works in first gear. It doesn't work in second.
At the end of Q1, Lucas Ordóñez tops the times by a tenth from Jonathan Hershey. Sam Tordoff third ahead of Jimmy Eriksson, and then the Jaguar of Laurence Frey going strongly fifth. So both the Jags up though, which is good. Sixth, Giorgio Maggi, ahead of Victor Scheiter. Then the Olivier Beretta, Andrea Piccini, Stefano Gattuso, Ferrari from Michael Bronizeski, and Marcel Fassler rounding out the top 10. Keep on going. 13th fastest, Passin Lathoris. Bentley 8 of Vincent Abril 16th, ahead of Marco Ciocci. And a little bit further down, you find the Stuart Leonard Audi 22nd and the Edo Mortara Mercedes 24th fastest. Look at some of the top teams that we have as well. Black Falcon here en masse with Mercedes. Raton Racing, that won the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe last year and the World Final with Dennis Lind, coming into Blancpain, and its car 30th fastest. Patrick Kujala will be out in the Barwell car that's 32nd currently, with Adrian Amstutz at the helm. And then Gianmaria Gabbiani, Beppe Gabbiani's son, 33rd fastest, along with Damien Faulkner and Mike Skeen. Bentley 7, 37th, and of course a number that didn't need to go out because they only have 2 drivers, and some not getting a time in because of contact. Now, we'd accounted for 1, but also number 19 didn't get a lap time in. That's a bit curious. Anyway, Lucas Ordonez is the fastest. Time we heard from him, he's in the pits with Dakota Jane.
Lucas, you weren't so quick yesterday, but it seems like you've got the pace on today.
Well, you know, it's only Q1. The important thing is on Q3. Car felt good. Obviously, we don't know how many cars got new rubber for the Q1. So yeah, happy with P1. Obviously, it's always good to see your name on top. But obviously, there's a lot of work to do. The top guys, top cars will be up the front in Q3. So let's see if Alex can push as last year. Obviously, we found some time in the morning today. The team did a good job last night to find some setup, but we'll see. Q3 is the key point, and we have to qualify up the top to have a good race. If not, if you get down the 10th position, it's gonna be a nightmare here. So let's see.
Well, I'm interested to know, what did they actually do?
Well, we did quite a big setup change. We took some risks, but anyway, we don't know how many cars took the new rubber in Q1, so we don't know what is the real time, what is our real position, but so far so good, and let's see. Now Chio goes Q2 and then Alex for Q3, so excited.
Well, great, thank you very much, good luck.
Thank you.
One of the pleasures of speaking to Lucas Ordonez is you really only need to ask one question, because he then goes on and gives you answers to those questions that you would like to, supplementary questions, and great guy, lovely guy.
The original PlayStation Academy winner, of course, and he's had a very busy career ever since. It's great to have him back in European racing, and Spaniard has found a very happy home for himself with Nissan products. So too Alex Buncombe.
He's sort of the top of the drivers that have come through the academy. He's the one that's really progressed. And Jan Mardenborough, of course, being the other one. Those are the two that are perceived to be of the whole GT Academy program that have been the biggest successes.
Absolutely right. And Alex Buncombe, who wasn't the PlayStation Academy winner, but he celebrates 10 years with Bob Neville's team and with Nissan, and is very content there and very successful too. Of course, he was champion 2 years ago. Right, we're getting ready for Q2 now, so add a few more cars into the mix and change the drivers, and we'll see lighter fuel load. Whether a 48.6 stands, I doubt it will, but it's going to be intriguing. This 87, good to go with Nico Bastien at the wheel of Jean-Luc Bobelic's Mercedes. There is number 32, car that had some damage yesterday, but Luca Ludwig, Emmanuel Vinca and Kevin Chekon are the drivers. It was Kevin Chekon that put it in the wall in the pre-qualifying session, wasn't it, towards the end of the afternoon?
And I mean, what is amazing about the Mercedes-Benz GT3 AMG is that it is built like the proverbial, and the damage was to the right front. It was basically bodywork damage, but I suspect that following Mercedes tradition, when they build their customer cars, they build them strong, because they know they're going to get a little bit of rub and bump and whatever, so you make your car accordingly.
That's the Adrian Amstutz, Patrick Kujala, Martin Kodric Lamborghini that Martin Kodric rotated yesterday, the Croatian driver. Adrian Amstutz has done his bit. Martin Kodric will go next. 58 is, on paper, a very quick car. Ben Barnicoat, Rob Bell, Coen Ledegaard, factory drivers all at McLaren.
Yep, potential, you know, top 3 rows, top 6 position. Maybe not out and out pace for that pole position, but having said that, you know, don't be surprised. But one of these cars the 50 or the 55 Ferrari, certainly amongst many in the pit lane, could be a very strong contender of that coveted pole of Monza.
Absolutely right. So we're in business then. The cars go pouring out onto the circuit, 15 minutes again, which doesn't give you much time. By the time you've got out of the pit lane, you understand why the teams want to be first in the queue. You either want to be first out and get a clear road, or last out and get a clear road, but the danger of being last is that you've lost 2 or 3 minutes, so you've got less time of the session. Anyway, some are ready to go. The Straka cars in formation. McLaren's being released as soon as there's a gap. 42 good to go, which is Craig Fleming at the wheel, because we know that Nick Leventis will not race. And we wish him well.
Yes, indeed, and I will want to keep an eye on that 42 car, because clearly it will go out and come straight back in, because I want to have a look at the car, do one installation lap as such. But that's been the whole front end of the car, from the monocell forward, has been replaced. I looked at the car this morning, I could not tell. When you saw the car, when it returned to the pits yesterday, shook her head and said, it's a no-hooper. But great work by Straka engineers, by McLaren, and getting the parts available and getting the work. They finished, I believe, 6:30 this morning.
Oh, my word.
Just at the point we were entering the circuit ourselves for our day.
Of course, because we are keen and tireless in our work ourselves, but it's a Herculean effort, that, from Straka, and they deserve a good result after all of that. When we looked at it yesterday, we were told by the team it is repairable, and I think we wrinkled our noses and said, well, maybe in the factory, but not necessarily here. But they really have worked wonders.
Yeah, I think that the strength of the McLaren, both metaphoric and literal, is that the whole front section of that car is an attachment to the monocell. So by removing all that bit up to the monocell, and they were able to determine that that was undamaged, then they just needed to put the new parts on. One of the benefits of that kind of construction, and in fairness, it will give benefits for road cars likewise.
Can I get you excited about the Porsche, please?
I would love to. I mean, you think these cars began life in 63, production started in 1964. You know, it is just 54 years, 53 years. It is just stunning.
I know they've evolved, but you can still see the lineage, can't you? The basic shape is still there to see. And we've only got one on the grid. This is the point, that the BES Motorsport car whoops up the escape road in the hands of Alfred Renauer. It's a great shame we don't have more Porsches, but Porsche does tend to go in phases. Concentrates on LMP racing, then concentrates on the One Make Championships, then has another look at GT3, then goes around again. So I'm sure that this will come back to the forefront of its
well, I think the next phase of evolution within the 911 family, albeit maybe a mid-engine 911, which could be something that is 2 or 3 years down the road. When that happens, then you might see a bigger Porsche presence from a semi-factory-based team. But in the meantime, they're doing their own things in LMP1 and in other GT categories. So it's left to the independent owners of the car. But it's great to have at least one Porsche. We've got one BMW representing those brands on the field, or in the field here this weekend.
It was a Porsche that won the very first ever Blancpain Endurance Series race here, and one of its drivers, Raffaele Giammaria, is in the entry, but he now is a Lamborghini driver and works with the young drivers, and is not just a racer but also driver coach over the course of the weekends, and is involved in helping with data and track walks and passing on his experience. Now they're 22 Nissan, that's the sister car. This is the one that's driven by Matt Simmons, Struan Moore for this session, and Matt Parry. And Struan Moore moving from a McLaren to a Nissan and really liking the feel of the car, he was saying to me. But yesterday, John, they had electrical dramas?
Yeah, they had an ECU problem, which they thought they had resolved. In the meantime, just quickly, Salaquada in the 75 Audi has gone quickest in the session. They had an ECU problem which they thought they'd solved. They came here and they realised that the problem wasn't in the ECU. It was somewhere within the wiring loom. And, I mean, the only way you can ever fix that problem is to literally rip everything out. And that is a man in a car, in a GT car, that's a big, big job.
The Emile Frey Jaguar on track. Incidentally, you know the Porsche that you just saw go off the road at the chicane? Well, by dint of doing that and exceeding track limits, its lap time has been cancelled. So Alfred Renauer has to do it all over again. Number 14 then, the Emile Frey Jaguar hustling on, which for Q2 should have Stefano Telli behind the wheel, former Blancpain Endurance Series champion. as it was known in those days. The top times are changing. We're into the 49s. We're not yet on an Ordóñez time, but it is Jake Dennis, briefly fastest, 1:49.119 from Adam Christodoulou. So 2 British drivers at the top, and then Patrick Assenheimer is third fastest. But Ordóñez's time for the moment stays as the top.
Yep. On board with the 14 Jaguar, it looked, as I've noticed, a number of cars over the period of Friday, principally Saturday, in those 2 sessions. Little movement just at the point of entry into the Parabolica. Hard to understand whether maybe the tyre is still not up to operating temperature, but something that more than just the Jaguar has been guilty of. A little bit of change now at the front. Andrew Watson's gone second quickest in the 59 McLaren. Fast overall is Emile Frey in that Jaguar, 1:48.5, which does that finally eclipse the time of the Nissan?
It does. It's being shown on the timing screen as Albert Costa, although the entry list said that this was going to be a Stefan Ortelli session. Either way, it has gone fastest, 1:48.561. We know that the Jaguars were having transponder dramas earlier on, so I'm content that it is Stefan Ortelli. But anyway, it's irrelevant in the sense that now fastest goes number 11, which is Matteo Cressoni, shown as the driver in this part, 1:48.242. But again, that's a different driver from the starting entry list that we had for this section of qualifying.
And that's a Pro-Am car.
It is indeed.
Which is interesting, because normally we would not expect a Pro-Am car to be right now in the heart of things as the number 5 Audi gets up to Will Stevens doing his bit for the WRT team in 3rd place.
But if you put the Pro in it, then it is going to be quick, isn't it? So Cressoni, we know he's good. So Matteo Cressoni is the fastest, 1:48.242. Up to second fastest now goes number 19, Raffaele Giammaria, and that's 55. So James Collado given driving duties for this part of qualifying for Q2. James new to Blancpain, but no stranger to endurance racing and to Ferraris. He's been in the WEC for the last couple of years. And as the times continue to shuffle, he dives up the inside into the Parabolica.
And this number 50 Ferrari, Michele Rugolo, 1:48.1. So the time's beginning to tumble. It's just under 7.5 minutes remaining. So the professionals, or the more accomplished drivers in these cars coming to the fore, hopefully we'll get somebody who can break the 1:48. We only had one driver do that so far this weekend, and that was Felipe Salaquada about this time on Saturday morning in the 75 Audi. I would expect now to see more drivers breaking into the 1:47s. That's where the pole position time has got to be set, in my view.
Raffaele Giammaria, though, is on a real mission in the background, having done an absolute and a personal best. There he is, number 19 in the GRT Grassa Racing Team Lamborghini, working his way now down through the Parabolica. That was the car that he shares with Norbert Sievers and Ezequiel Perez Compact. I don't think went out in the first session, strangely. Comes up now to the timing line, and that will put him fastest of all. It's a 47.999. He's just under, but he's under. He's in the 1:47s.
By a 1,000th of a second. But anyway, he's there. Mercedes runs a little bit wide. The wrong part of the exit of the Parabolica, but brings it back, gets online. So one car, finally, after waiting 24 hours, has gotten into the 1:47s.
So Raffaele Giammaria then, the fastest, and of course he's quickest in not just Q2 but overall now. So that Ordóñez time puts him 10th overall. That shows you how this session has moved on as the cars are getting lighter all the time. But expect number 23 to bounce back in the final part of qualifying. It's Katsumasa Chiyo now, and then it'll be Alex Buncombe for Q3, and we are shown the top 20 on our monitors in the booth, and 23 Nissan is not yet in that top group. Black Falcon Mercedes about to be overhauled there by Matteo Cressoni, who comes down towards the Parabolica. Turns his way out of the long right and then up towards the timing line. He did a personal best in the first sector. He was a little bit down in the middle, and Matteo Cressoni now comes across the timing line, and the lap time is slightly slower at 1:48.246, keeping him fourth fastest but comfortably quickest in Pro-Am.
Oh yes, by a considerable distance. fourth quickest for the Pro-Am. Next car is 17th. That's the 87 car. The ASP of Nicolas Bastien Jules Gugnon.
And this is 72, which is Davide Rigon, who was fastest yesterday in pre-qualifying for a moment and comes over the timing line to go second fastest, 1:48.044. 45 thousandths back from Raffaele Giammaria. Davide Rigon then, who we know is a very rapid driver. He is joined by Victor Scheitar, who is a silver-graded Russian driver. He's got a good pedigree. And Miguel Molina as well, former DTM racer, single-seater racer. So he is another very strong driver in that car. We've got 4 more minutes of this part of qualifying still to go. Raffaele Giammaria, having done the gun time, has now pitted, so work done. Do the driver change and get Norbert Siedler in and ready to go for Q3.
And I suspect what we saw at the end of Q1 is going to be very much what we're going to see here. Once you've set a respectable time, go back into the pit lane, conserve those tyres. You never know if you're going to need them, and it'll then be that final dash, and that will be the one that's hopefully going to see the true performance of the entire field, but principally within the Pro category. But as you point out to David, the Pro and the Pro-Am category is also more than capable of putting the car well up the grid.
We were talking yesterday in the context of Alessandro Pierguidi, weren't we, about his infamous drama at the start of the Spa 24 Hours, and that was in a Pro-Am car, but he'd done the time, and that's why it was up at the front of the grid. And we've had other examples. Was it the same year that Stefan Mucker in a Pro-Am Aston got pole position out of the Super Pole competition? 84, being driven in this part of qualifying by Franck Pereira, and he is where? 10th fastest.
I would expect Franck Pereira got personal best in Sector 1. Sector 3 will have a second or so down. That's probably due to the traffic that he's been finding his way through. Franck Pereira, I mean, mega quick in the Mercedes, and really enjoying being in a top team once again and coming across the start-finish line. So let's see if there is any improvement. Lost probably too much time, I think, in the middle sector. So 150.3 against a 148.4 that with cars already recorded. Clear-ish track, just one car ahead going into the first chicane. So hopefully he might manage to clear that. The Jaguar staying well off the racing line as the 50 Ferrari comes in again, just like that. It's the nose sort of hunts around as they try and pick up the apex. So Miguel Rugolo, fastest personal best. Where is he going to end up? In stage 4th.
Yeah, personal best Sector 1, and then it all unravelled a little, didn't it? But still a decent effort.
Yeah, 3/10 off or 2/10 off what the car has already achieved.
And there is Matteo Cressoni. Similar kind of lap, actually. Personal best Sector 1, a bit down in Sector 2. Cressoni still topping Pro-Am overall, as well as in Q2. And he breaks the timing beam now, and that lap is a better one. It's a 48.226, but it keeps him 5th fastest.
This car, the 11 Ferrari, looked better entering into Parabolica than the car directly ahead of it, the 50 car of Miguel Rugolo. Don't know why, whether just different setups, maybe just different driving styles. But certainly the 11 car looked to be easier on the driver in terms of commitment and consequently in confidence.
There's 114. The Jaguars 6th and 7th overall at the moment, which is really encouraging. This is Andrew Watson, who is now 14th overall, just behind Rob Bell, incidentally. So 13th and 14th overall, 12th and 13th in this session, the Stracker McLarens. Andrew Watson, who came out of Ginetta Racing, but has certainly impressed in his last couple of seasons in McLarens. Very likeable young bloke, and getting better and better and better all the time, which comes with experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also he's now finished his studies. He's working in the family business, which is a bit of an eye-opener for him, but the reality is he's got to make a living. But he doesn't have that, trying to find the balance between studying for your exams and then going racing at weekends. So I think he did a very impressive job in this car in Misano 3 weeks ago. Runs pretty wide on the exit. You need to be careful not to get docked for excessive track limits. So is there any improvement for the 59 car, I beg your pardon? No. A 148.7, about a tenth of a second away from the car's best.
checkered flag. He just sneaked through. He'll get another lap out of this, but the flag is now out. And who else might improve before the very end? There's 44, which is Johnny Kane's car. That's 10th. So McLaren's, I know they're not right at the pointy end, but they're up there, far better than yesterday. So now we're starting to see the better feel of a McLaren.
They're slowly creeping up. Whether they will have that out-and-out pace when it matters, difficult to tell, but if they can get a top 6 start for one or both of those 2 cars, that I think they will be pretty happy with, because that will then put them in very strong position for the 3 hours later this afternoon.
Alex Buncombe was saying to me, you really need to be in the top 10 because otherwise you're in all the traffic, and A, you're at peril of somebody else making a mistake, but also it's so hard because of the BOP to get through the traffic that you're stuck. This is how we look then overall, based on Q1 and Q2. Raffaele Giamaria's time ahead of Davide Rigon, and then third fastest James Collado, fourth quickest Michele Rugolo, fifth Matteo Cressoni, sixth fastest Albert Costa, seventh fastest now Marco Seefried, eighth quickest Will Stevens, ninth Fort Pereira, and 10th quickest Johnny Kane, 11th Jake Dennis, 12th Lucas Ordonez, Rob Bell 13th ahead of Andrew Watson, 14th fastest then the second car, 15th is Struan Moore in his Nissan ahead of Adam Christodoulou. Then it is Felix Serrales, the Puerto Rican ex-single-seater racer. Next up comes Andrea Piccini, then Kevin Chekon, and the top 20 rounded out the Black Falcon car, this by Scott Heckert. And that's a good effort for 3 drivers that don't know Monza. Keep going. Bentley 7's got work to do. Oliver Jarvis down 34th at the moment. The lone Porsche is 29th fastest, with Alfred Renau doing the time. And let's have a look and see where the Aston Martin was. 32nd, Ahmad Al-Harthi, Johnny Adam, to take over for this final part of qualifying. So what you're looking at is the car's better time out of Q1 and Q2. Number 8, Bentley, currently 37th. And number 3, Audi, is a long way down. The Josh Cagill, Nicky Malmhoff, John Ventnor car. That currently is only 40th. Number 60 is going to be one to watch. Dennis Lind to go out next. 35 BMW will have Jaap van Lagen at the wheel. And 26 will have Christopher Haase at the wheel. So it's going to be another shuffle. Number 2 didn't go out because of its damage, nor did 66 in that second element. And now let's go to the pit lane. Raffaele Giammaria is the fastest. Time we heard from him.
Fastest in Q2, but it seems to be a battle for the Italians.
Yeah, it's my home track, so I'm very happy because it's also my first real race with the color of Lamborghini, and so it's a fantastic opportunity that Lamborghini gave me. I stay in a fantastic team. We did a good job yesterday, and doing the P1 in my quali is a big honor for me because I repeat, it's my home track.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
So when he was a Porsche driver, Raffaele Giammaria for Autolando Sport won that first Blancpain race, the very first in the history of what's been a hugely successful championship, now on the Lamborghini payroll. And as I was saying earlier on, he's not just a driver, he's a driver coach as well. Now, replay here of some curb hopping and really being worked over 59. That was Andrew Watson, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was using the steering wheel and the throttle, and but that's confidence. He kept the car momentum. You can see it, you know, bouncing inside wheel, just almost getting clear air underneath it. The time that I thought stood out in that second practice, qualifying session, was actually the 63 Lamborghini, which was almost at the bottom of the timing and scorings, but it's going to be driven by Mirko Bortolotti, and that's a car that, unquestionably, with Bortolotti behind the wheel, could suddenly go from being at the bottom of timing and scoring to the very top. So while it didn't feature in that second qualifying session, I suspect it will be rampant. That's a prancing horse, isn't it? What does a prancing bull do? Is it ever rampant?
I think they are known as rampant bulls, aren't they, Lamborghinis?
I'm not sure.
Anyway.
Ask a farmer.
The mind boggles. It will be rampant, and we've had Lamborghini win here in the past. Could happen again. So there in the pit lane, everyone gets ready for Q3. Is it going to be a Lamborghini pole position? You've got Lamborghini, Ferrari, Jaguar at the moment.
Yeah, and the winner from Misano, I think, was down about 8th or 9th. That was the 84 Mercedes-Benz. So Maximilian Buch will be behind the wheel. Frank Pereira did the time. James Collado, who's enjoying a great new career as a part of the Ferrari team, centrally contracted driver. Nice situation to be in when he's now at the phase of his career where he's got over all the disappointments of what he had hoped his career might turn into, and to be a contracted Ferrari driver, and you can continue in that role as long as you deliver for them out, for the team. Races all over Europe and America, well, wherever they send him, he races.
Exactly. Yeah. And Lamborghini, of course, another of the brands that has got the same thing with its young driver program, supporting drivers over in Japan in single-seater racing, as well as in GT racing, to nurture the talent. Now, Lawrence Frey must be very pleased with the way the big cats are going this morning, because 6th and 7th they are overall, and Lawrence Frey has done his bit for now. He's in the pit lane with Dakota.
Lorenz, 6 and 7, that's such a good showing from Jaguar so far.
Yeah, so far it's quite good. For sure, Q3 is the most important. Probably the track level is increasing, so there will be faster laps at the end. So I think we have to talk after Q3 where we are, but at the moment for Q1 and Q2 we always stayed in top 10 with both cars, could show the potential. We had a bit luck with traffic. This is also always quite difficult to find the free lap, but this was all okay.
Do you think you've got what it takes to push for pole?
Pole is really, really tough for sure. So many cars, so many good drivers here, but this is a dream, and let's dream a bit. We see it soon.
Power to you. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to see the Jaguars going so strongly, isn't it?
Thank you.
And it's a team that's chipped away. I mean, the cars, the first problem was they were hugely unreliable, so they never lasted long enough to get the data. Quite often they didn't even make the race because they'd have problems, but they had a podium at Silverstone 2 years ago, a class win at the Nürburgring in the 6-hour race at the end of that year, which was a hugely popular result, and they have made good progress ever since.
You sort of get the feeling it's the sweetheart team within the paddock, because it's a car that is effectively out of its time. It's not in production any longer. There is rumours that there will be the XJ, I think, whatever the current model is being developed for GT racing, maybe not necessarily in GT3, but it would be of an aluminium construction, which is what modern Jaguars are made from, whereas this is traditional steel kind of monocoque with a subframe in the front for the V8 engine. But just seconds to go before this final, and this is going to be the real nail biter. It will be getting a lap where you don't have traffic, or you get the minimum amount of traffic, or you catch it where it doesn't have any bearing. So who will take pole? I'm going to put my money on Mirko Bortolotti. 63 Lamborghini.
I think it's a good call. I think that's a good call. I'm going to go for Giancarlo Fisichella. So somebody else will bound to be at the top of the times with our luck. There is number 5 Audi good to go. The green flag is shown, and so now the pit lane empties, and it was number 3 Audi that was out first. So on their toes, WRT trying to get the clear track space. John Bender at the wheel. Nicholas Pola chases him out in the 27 Lamborghini. And 15 minutes underway. Top time then is the Raffaele Giammaria Lamborghini, 1:47.999. And that just gives you an idea of the strength of the entry and the number of different brands that we have as they come pouring out onto the circuit. 48 yet to go, the Manfilter HTP entry. This is the car that Kenneth Heyer, Patrick Assenheimer and Indy Doncic drive. I think I'm right in saying it should be Indy Doncic to do this last element of qualifying.
So 14 minutes remain. It goes very quickly. I mean, the basic process of once the track goes green, of getting onto the track, you can probably lose almost 2 minutes waiting, just the sheer volume of traffic getting that slot. So as you can get into the fast lane, and as we point out at Monza, it is a much older pit lane in relation to some of the circuits that we will be visiting later in the year, and especially with the volume of cars that we have here, a very, very tight team area, and when drivers come in to make their changes of driver refueling and 4 wheels and tyres, the mandatory 4 wheels and tyres, you have to have good relationships with those that are on either side of you to try and avoid the kind of mess that can occur if you don't work together with your neighbours. The only thing is there's no Lalandia getting in the way this time, is there?
Doesn't have quite the same appeal, does it not? Barwell and HTP running fleets of cars. That's the HTP end of the pit lane. HTP, incidentally, is the team that has all the garages at pit out. For so long, that was always WRT's preserve, wasn't it? But HTP has got the box seat this weekend.
Nice place to be.
Yeah.
So a couple of purples popping up, and Nicholas Polo's got purple in sector 1. It's the 30th.
That's number 14 over the timing line. So Stefano Telli at the wheel. Still accelerating. Now starts to go down through the gears and brake for the first chicane. Works his way through.
Stefano Telli had a mega accident at the first chicane a number of years ago when he was in an LMP1 car. It went up skyward, flipped over the barrier. I mean, it was a huge, huge accident. I think he suffered some injuries, but irrepressible as ever, and just loves his motor racing.
He did also focus him on GTs, didn't he? I think after that he steered away from prototypes and concentrated on GT cars. Had a go in the Orica Celine for a time, and then became part of the Audi family. Former Porsche Super Cup champion, as well as Spa 24-hour outright winner in the old NGT Freisinger Porsche, and of course Le Mans winner as a factory Porsche driver going back to the late 1990s, 1998, when it was him and Alan McNish and Laurent Aiello.
Who was in the paddock yesterday?
Alan McNish.
He was,
yeah.
Hard to spot him, but he was there. He may be here today because he's, I think, assisting with Dean Stoneman.
Right.
So he was, being a Monegasque resident, as you are, he drove over with his son and paid a visit and looking after one of the drivers that he's seemingly moving into that kind of driver management area, or driver advice certainly area.
Yeah. And also, I suspect, hooking up with some of his old Audi teammates, co-drivers. So we've got the fastest time at the moment being offered up by number 90, which is the ACA ASP Raffaele Marciello Mercedes. Not anymore, because now fastest goes at 22, which is Matt Parry in the Nissan.
Good effort.
Very good job. New to the car.
Parry.
Yeah.
You're coming from single-seater racing into a car that certainly is 2.5 times the weight of a single-seater. Everything is a lot more ponderous in terms of reaction response, but good run from Matt Parry at the present time, 148.2. He'll be happy, I think, with that. He had the fastest third sector time, which is interesting. That's Parabolica, then onto the main straight, down to the start-finish line.
He's now bested by Stephen Kane, who in Q3 is fastest. Not overall, that puts Stephen 4th overall, but he's fastest within Q1. Within Q3, I should say, 148.186. Then, to the top of the times goes Alessandro Pierguidi, 147.540, and that puts him, it should put him now up to the very top.
I would have thought that's got to be pretty much,
yeah.
And that's more like it. That's what I've been waiting to see. If you look at Giancarlo Fisichella.
Just wonder if there's a problem with that lap of Pierguidi, because although it's shown as the fastest in Q3, it's not yet been recorded as the fastest time outright, as though that page might have a problem, or the lap might be being looked at. Anyway, Pierguidi 147.540 shown as being fastest in Q3, and there in 55 hustling on Giancarlo Fisichella.
97, fastest in Sector 1, a man racing. Where did that Johnny Adam come from?
Well, we know he's quick.
Aston fastest, Sector 1, I'm repeating it.
Well, he's got work to do to haul that up the order. 14th overall at the moment, 9th in this session. How's 55 Ferrari doing? James Colado's time put it third earlier. So now into the Variante Ascari. Carlos Fisichella.
Second place, 19 Lamborghini. So Robert Seidler has improved into a 147.7. So now two drivers into that 147 time zone. 0.2 of a second behind the quickest of the Ferraris. Alessandro Pierguidi. Johnny Adam didn't have anything particularly special in Sector 2. Maybe traffic was a factor. Adam was our third quickest.
Johnny Adam in the Aston, third fastest in Q3.
And fastest Pro-Am.
Yeah, indeed. And and the time is a 47.807. That should be the fastest overall in Pro-Am, but again, the combined screen is not updating for some strange reason.
Of course, Johnny Adam can only do, in effect, one stint.
Yeah, that's right.
As the professional, now what is it? Well, it's always been, in this case, a two-driver car.
So the fastest time we've had thus far, number
Mirko
50.
Bortolotti, I beg your pardon, David, has gone third quickest in this stint in 47.7.
yeah.
So my prediction, he will be quickest overall. Well, he's still got more time. He's got 7 minutes in the plus. But that's an indicative lap from Bortolotti in that 63 Lamborghini.
Yeah, so Pierre Guidi is the fastest, just to finish the point, 1:47.540. Bortolotti, as John says, up to third, 1:47.798. All of these are faster than what was being done in Q2. And then in Bortolotti's next lap, he has done an absolute best in Sector 1. Johnny Adam down in the middle sector, but he's fifth overall.
But again, fastest in Sector 1. Ready to see Sector 2 time has come up, nothing special. In fact, he's lost almost 2 seconds in Sector 2, so this lap's not going to be any advantage to him whatsoever. But Bortolotti again is the one that's on the charge.
Stephen Kane goes second, 1:47.603. The gap is 63 thousandths. Pierre Guidi to Kane.
Bortolotti in traffic.
Yeah.
So he got through one of those cars. He's got a Lamborghini, one of the Temptor cars. I think it is ahead of him. He needs to clear that as quickly as possible. He can get the slipstream. If he can maintain it, then make a move down the inside into Parabolica. It's going to be a big movement from Bortolotti. He puts the car in the mirror of the Temptor racing car, but he's going to lose time running too close to the back, and not only lose time on this lap, he's going to lose time on the lap he's about to go on to, because he has not been able to clear the Lamborghini, and he will want to do so as he goes across the line. 1:47.9, not a bad lap, only 0.2 of a second down, but he wants to get clear. Now he's got the opportunity. This lap might do something to help Bortolotti.
On board with Alex Buncombe, number 23.
Out of NISMO 2.
19th at the moment in this session. Needs to find something to get the car up overall. He's aiming for the top 10. And the fact that Matt Parry is up there third, mighty effort by Matt, new to GT racing, hugely impressive. It does show that the Nissan is capable of it.
But I think it's going to throw a little bit of a spanner into the works of car 23. Now, of course, single fast laps are very important, but they're not all about 3-hour endurance races. But nonetheless, a very impressive first stint by the young Brit in the 22 Nissan to put that car third quickest in the session. It's always been the domain of Alex Buncombe to drag a time out in the closing moments in the 23 Nissan. Goes across the line. Well, it doesn't look to be in the top 20 to me.
No, I think he's lost out on that last lap because others have gone faster. Daniel Karlvitz and also Robert Renard getting into the top 20. So there's more to come from Alex, for sure. We know he's good. Champion 2 years ago. Just saw Yelmer Berman there, 9th fastest in the Mercedes, go through. So Alessandro Pierre Guidi versus Stephen Kane, 63 thousandths of a second is the margin between them.
So the 55. No, so that's the 72 Ferrari in the pits. No, that's the 55, the 72 on track. Now we see the car coming down to Parabolica now, personal best, first and second sector. So currently in 7th, just moved up there a moment ago. Should move forward, only 28th hundredth of a second behind the 6th place Aston Martin. That's the lead Pro-Am car. And yes, it does. It goes quickest overall, 47.5. Wow, only personal bests, but got it done.
Fantastic. Davide Rigon then goes fastest, and Stephen Kane third. But everyone at Monza seems happy that a Ferrari is fastest. It's a Ferrari 1-2 indeed. They've locked out the front row. Bentley third, Lamborghini fourth, and Nissan fifth. Great effort then by Davide Rigon to go fastest. They're heading for the pit lane. I suspect it's Stephen Kane with 3 minutes to go.
That's what you don't want to see. Loads of cars on the racetrack. The 63 Lamborghini again finding itself getting trapped in traffic, gets clear of the Audi coming up into Parabolica, got the McLaren directly ahead of it. Of course, another lap, another few thousands of rubber removed from the Pirelli tyres. Still should be in pretty good shape. The view that most drivers are giving is that this new Pirelli tyre doesn't have that sort of peak that the tyre from previous seasons had. Slightly less message that it's with you, but it lasts longer. So nothing special in sector 1 and 2 for the 63.
No. Just wondering whether he'll even stay out. Oliver Jarvis and Guy Smith watching, and Stephen Kane is into the pit lane. Now, are they going to throw another set of tyres on? No, he hasn't got time to do a lap, has he?
No, not to change full racing tyres.
No.
So they're going to be starting at best on the second row of the grid alongside Bortolini, assuming that's the case. Looks like it is with the combined times. 50 Ferrari, but again only sort of average times, first and second sector pair. Alessandro Pierguidi, somebody who at any point in any qualifying session is capable of putting that yellow Ferrari right up where it needs to be and comes across the line. Let's have a look and see. No improvement. Currently it is technically on the front row of the grid alongside the 72 SMP Ferrari. So, well, you start on the left, start on the right into turn 1. There's a mute question as we go on board with Fisichella and the 55 Ferrari down into turn 1. Late brake, get the car squared up, make your apex, be slow in the first part, get your apex, and then this is where you can make up the time. Run the curb a little bit, but keep it as straight as possible. And then, as we go aboard again with Giancarlo Fisichella, the concentration on his eyes, barely a blink as he focuses going into Cover Grande. And I said Cover Grande is easy flat. It's still a mega corner, and you're coming out of it around about 140, 150 miles an hour. This is a road car. It is not a pure race car. It's as close to a race car as you can make a road car, but it is still a massive corner. Again, that little flinch on the entry into the first of the Lesmos. We've seen that all weekend from a variety of different cars. Into the slower now of the two Lesmos. Lesmo 2 looks down at the instruments, checks information, and again, that depth of concentration. And look, he's shaking his head and looking at maybe he's maybe got a time readout and seeing that he's losing time, which is not exactly what he wants. Whoa, 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 through the Ascari. That would look like a right handful. Fisichella currently in the car in the session, only 13th quickest. Looks down again, probably getting a minus readout. Frustrating, looks in the mirror just to check, and I think he's coming in. It's all over. The checkered flag is out anyway, so whether he took the flag as he went onto this lap or whether or not, but you could tell that he was coming in. So a bit of joy in the pits for the SMP Ferrari, and a good job done.
So Davide Rigon does the time for second, but today, of course, Alessandro Pierguidi on his last lap goes fastest, 1:47.423, 87 thousandths quickest he was, and oddly, none of the sectors were personal bests, but strung together, it was indeed spot on lap.
Yep. So a very good lap, 1:47.4. In the kind of zone that we had hoped we would see cars. Not many of them got into the 47. Well, in fact, saying that now, top 12 did do a 1:47 point something, so they all managed in that final segment. New tyre, maybe the best of the three drivers, or in some cases the best of two drivers. And where did the 42 car, we haven't got that on scoring to see where it ended up. That was the McLaren that was damaged heavily but repaired overnight. It's not on our top 20 timing and scoring.
Well, an intriguing session and one or two surprises, but now we've got 3 hours of racing to look forward to, and Alessandro Pierguidi's car will start on pole position. We haven't yet had the nominated start drivers, but it might be they put Pasinathorus in it first as the slower of the three, and then keep Pierguidi for the end. It tends to be that way, doesn't it? They Lathorus, then Rugolo, and then Pierguidi for the last stint.
it's an interesting dilemma. What do you do? You've got two full professional drivers and one talented semi-pro driver. If you've got track position as you've got in qualifying, I personally would want to put one of my pro drivers in to enable us to take advantage of our qualifying. I would not want to have Pathoros in personally, because with respect, although he can probably hold position, he will lose positions overall in that one. That's a question for team managers to mull over and decide what's the best thing for their individual situation. But that car, yellow Ferrari, we thought it might be an Italian car, we most likely thought it was going to be a Ferrari 488. My choice, Mirko Bortolotti, looks like the Lamborghini is going to be starting in the third row of the grid in 5th place.
So there's the
and
car.
Who was your choice, David?
I went for Fisichella, didn't I? And he is a long way down, 14th fastest.
Well,
so we'll wait and see how he fares in the race, or how that car fares in the race with 3 fast drivers. That's the one that's third, because in fact also on the last lap Norbert Siedler went up to 2nd fastest. So Davide Rigon was quickest, and then on their last laps both Pierre Guidi and Siedler have elbowed him back. So the SMP Racing Ferrari is again tangential to AF Corsa, ends up third, but it's a Ferrari and Lamborghini front row. That'll keep the Italians happy, one of each. But
a Bentley's 4th.
Indeed. And an Aston Martin, the Aston Martin is 7th. Johnny Addo doing a mighty job.
That's great. That actually is the standout performance, I would say, in qualifying. It is the first of the Pro-Am cars. It's a 2-driver car. Again, the Aston Martin is not at the level, maybe one might say, of the current GT3 competition, but it's just kept running, and Johnny did a brilliant job.
Let's have a look at the order then, with the number 50 Ferrari starting from provisional pole position, with Norbert Siedler and then Davide Rigon 2nd and 3rd. Stephen Kane's Bentley 4th, ahead of Mirko Bortolotti's Lamborghini. Matt Parry's Nissan, mega job, ahead of Johnny Adam, mega job. Fabrizio Crestani 8th from Daniel Giancadea. Jan Berman is 9th and 10th. Those two Mercedes 11th, David Fumanelli. And then it's Clement Schmidt in the Audi that was fastest in free practice, rounding out the top dozen. After that, you get to number 8 Bentley, courtesy of Maxime Soulet. And then Giancarlo Fisichella 14th, Andrea Bertolini 15th, Maxi Buch only 16th, so that's a bit of a surprise, a bit further down than you'd anticipate. Christian Klein 17th from Christopher Hasse, then Daniel Kalvitz Ferrari ahead of Dries Vanthoor. 21st, Com Ledegaard's Stracker McLaren ahead of Stefan Ortelli. The Porsche, Robert Renault's time putting it 23rd ahead of Raffaele Marciello, 24th with his Mercedes AMG. That's not yet halfway. 25th is the Kessel Racing Ferrari, Andrea Rizzoli doing the last stint ahead of Alex Buncombe, so 26th for the former champion. Dominic Baumann a long way back, he's 27th ahead of Rino Mastronardi, then Rui Aguas up to 29th ahead of Manuel Metzger, Patrick Kujala 31st ahead of Luca Ludwig and Marcus Winkelhock, 34th Olivier Beretta, and Alex Fontana 35th ahead of Stefano Gattuso. 37th fastest, the 888 Kessel Ferrari, David Parel doing the time, ahead of Jules Gounod with his Mercedes, Indy Donger's Mercedes, Lewis Williamson's Stracker McLaren 40th, Mike Skeen 41st ahead of Dean Stoneman, and then Max Van Splunter and Richard Abra 44th, Dennis Lind only 45th, thought he might have gone better than that, Davide Rizzo 46th ahead of the Brett Sandberg Mercedes, and 50 cars doing times. Remember that big accident we had at the start of qualifying, doing damage to Trellier and Marco Mappelli's Audi and Lamborghini respectively. Alessandro Pierguidi is the fastest then. Let's hear from him with Dakota.
Congratulations, the man on pole and the winner of the Italian battle.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure to be here in Monza. It's my home track, and to be on pole is amazing. Like always, of course, I did a crazy job, and Ferrari gave me this car to be on pole because it was really quick. We started yesterday with not the perfect feeling with the car, but we improved a lot in the practice 1 and 2. And in quality, the car was almost perfect, so I'm really happy to be on pole, of course.
Forza Italia, good luck.
Thank you, Forza Italia.
So very happy Alessandro Pierguidi, and top driver, top car, top team, a likely winner, potential winner for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong entry, whichever way you look at it. And of course, the big advantage is starting at the front on pole position. Of course, getting into and through the chicane is a bit of a problem because you can get a loose cannon coming down the inside, but that's got to be a great position.
Yeah, he's passing enough for a start. He just needs to keep out of trouble, doesn't he? Let's just look back at some of the highlights of qualifying that started at 9:45, but was soon interrupted with that sizable incident down at the first chicane when here Nathaniel Berton was drilled by the number 66 Giovanni Venturini driven Lamborghini, and driver's okay, but we await news as to the state of certainly the Lamborghini. As the session continued, it was Lucas Ordóñez who was fastest in Q1, and Guy Smith was at the helm of number 7 Bentley. In Q2 though, we had Alfred Renard running off the road, skipped over the curbing and lost that lap time as the ACA ASP Mercedes battle their way through the Curva Grande. Somebody else in strife was Patrick Assenheimer in the number 48 Mercedes running out of road at the first chicane. And in Q2, James Collado hustled his way up the inside of traffic as Lucas Ordóñez's car, given over to Ketsumasa Chio, started to just drop down the overall order as the cars got lighter, quicker drivers were put in, and so the order started to shuffle, and it all came to a head in Q3 as they blasted their way out on track. Both of the Emil Frey Racing Jaguars have been looking strong this morning, and ultimately though it is going to be the Alessandro Pierguidi Ferrari that did the top time and will start on pole position as we look forward to what should be a great endurance season opener here at Monza this afternoon.